Last week, the English dub for Kaguya-sama Love is War was made available for streaming by Funimation. I've heard nothing but good things about this series and have wanted to give it a shot for a while now. For whatever strange reason, last year Funimation decided to dub the second season first, which is why I waited until now to watch the show. I've never been a huge fan of romantic comedies, especially when it comes to anime. This genre has never really appealed to me, and a lot of the series seem targeted more toward the female audience. I've watched plenty of shows with comedy, romance, or slice of life elements in it, but as far as I can remember, I haven't fully watched a romantic comedy anime. The original Fruits Basket is probably the most I've dabbled into the genre, but I only saw a handful of episodes when it used to air on the Funimation channel. The selling point of Kaguya-sama is how it mixes comedy and romance with a Death Note style battle of wits between its two main protagonists, Kaguya Shinomiya and Miyuki Shirogane. Kaguya and Miyuki are at the top of their class at a prestigious school and are members of the student body. After working together for some time, they develop feelings for each other. The premise of the show is very simple. There's a power dynamic in every relationship, and someone will always be on the losing end. With that in mind, neither of them is willing to confess their feelings, so they constantly try to trick the other person into doing it. This was essentially 12 episodes of two characters beating around the bush. The fact that the show never got stale is a testament to how great the writing is for the characters and the various scenarios. The primary protagonists are surprisingly layered. Kaguya and Miyuki's reluctance to be upfront with each other about their feelings stems from their pride and stubbornness in addition to their individual backgrounds. Unlike the other kids at his school, Miyuki's family isn't rich and he's had to work extremely hard to gain the respect and admiration of his peers. Miyuki's proud of his accomplishments and wants to maintain the perfect image others have of him. Part of the reason why Miyuki won't tell Kaguya that he loves her is because he doesn't want to be seen as inferior or weak in her eyes. Miyuki has a lot of pride, even more so than Kaguya. On the other hand, Kaguya is way more stubborn and unlike him is in denial about her feelings toward him. Kaguya comes from a rich family and her sheltered upbringing is a critical factor as to why she struggles to express her feelings toward Miyuki. They're both also afraid of how the other might react to their admission of love, which is depicted through their many delusions. I think the author, Aka Akasaka, does an excellent job presenting typical relationship problems teenagers would have and the many anxieties that come with expressing interest in someone at that age. One example of this occurs earlier in the season when a student comes to Miyuki asking for advice on how to ask a girl out. The challenges the characters face are realistic, and Akasaka always manages to find the humor in the situation. The romance element of the show was handled really well, especially during the last couple of episodes. Kaguya and Miyuki's behavior is often very realistic to how some teenagers would act around someone they like for the first time. There were times where these characters were very nervous around each other. In one scene, Miyuki was so nervous that his knees were shaking. In certain situations, they even become bashful around each other. Even when they aren't around each other, they have a strong desire to see each other again. The love that these two characters have for each other is very believable. There are several times throughout the season where the characters clearly demonstrate how well they know each other and identify certain qualities they find attractive in the other person. Aside from the romance, this show is very funny, and even if a joke didn't work for me, I was always entertained by its characters and the situations that they were in. Like I mentioned before, one thing that separates Kaguya-sama from other series in the genre is the mind games that take place between Kaguya and Miyuki. I really enjoyed this aspect of the show. When these two characters clash, the show instantly overdramatizes and exaggerates practically everything they do. It honestly felt like I was watching a parody of Death Note due to how the characters overanalyze the other person's actions and then proceed to trivialize the simplest things. Similar to Death Note, we get a lot of insight into the characters' thought process as they devise a way to counter the other person's action. However, Kaguya and Miyuki are very delusional and have a tendency to overthink things, which leads to a lot of funny moments. These characters, especially Kaguya, can come out with some absurd and elaborate schemes. Their friend and fellow student body member Chika Fujiwara acts as a wild card who often throws a wrench into their plans. The narrator, voiced by Ian St. Clair, is appropriately over the top and provides play-by-play commentary as Kaguya and Miyuki try to outsmart one another. I'm very mixed when it comes to the implementation of the narrator. The narrator is almost like another character with his own personality who occasionally breaks the fourth wall. St. Clair brings a lot of energy to his performance, which I totally respect and enjoyed it for the most part. However, there were times where I felt like the narrator wasn't really needed, and in certain scenes he overcommentates. The narrator speaks so much that in some cases he almost overtakes character dialogue. Early on I started to wonder what the show would be like without the narrator. The narrator was absent for the majority of the season finale, and I didn't notice it until I rewatched the episode. While I like St. Clair's eccentric narration, I think that the narrator could have been used more sparingly. Narration aside, the voice acting for each individual character was superb, with the exception of Kei Shirogane's voice actor, Heather Walker. I thought that Walker's line delivery was a bit flat in some instances, but the character did make me laugh a couple of times. A lot of notable voice acting talent worked on this dub, and I'm pleasantly surprised by some of the casting choices. Alexis Tipton voices Kaguya, and is generally much more reserved than she is when voicing a character like Mei Hatsume from My Hero Academia. I love the way that she delivers her lines whenever Kaguya gets excited or aggravated. Tipton does a great job with the emotional scenes later in the season. I'm glad that Aaron Desmuke wasn't typecast as Yu Ishigami after voicing Tamaki Amajiki from My Hero Academia. Instead, Desmuke voices Miyuki, who sounds like a much more confident and energetic Tamaki. Yu Ishigami is voiced by Austin Tyndall, who also voices Accelerator from A Certain Magical Index. Yu is a paranoid, somewhat outspoken, emo freshman who is also a member of the student body. There are a couple of running jokes with him that I thought was really funny. Tyndall speaks in a low, almost lifeless tone until the character starts ranting about something or freaking out. His voice becomes much louder and he speaks with much more emotion. Tyndall was a great choice for that character. Chika Fujiwara is voiced by Jad Saxton, who also voices Tamaki in Fire Force. Chika is cute but also eccentric, and Saxton is a perfect fit for this type of character. My favorite supporting character, Ai Hayasaka, is voiced by Amanda Lee, who I didn't know prior to this review was a voice actor. I'm familiar with a lot of her English covers of popular anime songs, seen a lot of her videos for years. Anyway, Ai works at Kaguya's home as a maid and personal assistant. One thing that I like about this character is how her personality and energy changes depending on whether she's on the job or not. Lee's performance is a great display of range as the character puts on an accent and has a much softer tone when at work. You can hear the exhaustion in her voice when dealing with Kaguya in certain scenes. Lee loses the accent and speaks with much more energy when Ai is at school. Ai is more relaxed and expressive at school, but at work Ai is much more proper as she tries to stay professional. This is conveyed not only in the way that she carries herself, but also the way that she dresses at school as opposed to while on the job. I think Lee does a great job at capturing the duality of the character with her performance. I really hope that the second season features a lot more of this character. I really like how this character was written, and her character design is really good. In general, the character designs are unique and very appealing. Kaguya and Ai are the best looking ones in my opinion. Their notable features being their hairstyle, their hair accessories, and their eyes. Kaguya has a very striking design, and her eyes have this really cool looking fire design at the bottom. Episodes are divided into several small segments that are sometimes interconnected or feature storylines that are revisited in a later episode. This episode structure is rarely used in anime and was very common in old Western cartoons like Dexter's Laboratory. This is yet another aspect of the series that helps to set it apart from its contemporaries. It also allows the animation studio, A1 Pictures, the opportunity to adapt more material and tell a variety of small stories. The show is generally well paced, and it never felt like an episode segment was too slow or too drawn out. There was only one segment in episode 11, Chika Fujiwara Really Wants to Eat It, which probably could have been cut. It wasn't bad by any means, but it seemed like a waste of time just to introduce a minor character who only briefly shows up in the next episode. Before I close this review out, I want to briefly acknowledge certain aspects of this show's presentation. A1 Pictures produced some really great animation and are very creative in how they transition certain scenes. Their camera work is masterful. They utilize different perspectives, rotate and zoom the camera during certain scenes, which keeps things interesting from a visual standpoint. The music is excellent, and its opening theme, Love Dramatic, is a memorable song that I can't help but sing along whenever I hear it. The opening and ending sequences are beautiful, and they really capture the vibe of the series and the spirit of the characters. The Chika dance ending sequence was so random, but perfect. I couldn't look away from it. The dance itself was so very well choreographed that it reminded me of J-pop idol dance routines. The animation of Chika's skirt as she moved around was so fluid, man. It was really fluid. A lot of time and energy definitely went into making this one sequence that we oddly enough never get to see again. Overall, Kaguya-sama Love is War is a fantastic romantic comedy series that I think would appeal to people who aren't normally into this genre. The characters are entertaining to watch and they aren't just empty vessels for the comedy. The characters are brought to life by great voice acting, but the narrator is used far too frequently. This show tackles teenage romantic anxiety in a way that is interesting, funny, and on some level realistic. I can't recommend this show enough if you're a fan of rom-coms or slice of life series. So how did you feel about this show? Let me know in the comment section below. If you have an anime or manga that you would like to see me do a first impression or a review on, consider donating via PayPal or becoming a patron at patreon.com/fearnohate. Whether you decide to donate or not, thank you guys for watching. I'm out of here. Peace.